Hey everyone, this is Paul, and I know my hair looks absolutely ridiculous right now, but that is because I'm going to talk about Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, a game where literally the main character's hair is like this, but without me needing my hand to pull it up. Anyway, so this is a theory that I had about 4 or 5 years ago. This was way before I played Zero Escape, mind you. Um, a theory about the Ace Attorney games that was unfortunately shattered when Dual Destinies came around. It was when I first thought of what's now commonly known as the Multiverse theory, where basically one action and another action, depending on what decision you make, causes things to branch out in multiple universes. Now, I hadn't really known of any video games that used that theory. I didn't really know what it was. So, for me, I thought it was so ingenious when I finished playing Justice for All and there got to the Mr. Right, you can only present one piece of evidence part, and I got it wrong. And, spoiler alert, Phoenix comes off for the worse in that bad ending, in case you are playing that game and don't want to know exactly what happens. But if you win the game, obviously you know that there's a sequel, Trials and Tribulations. And then you also know that Apollo Justice came out in 2008, and a lot of us, myself very much included, were extremely disappointed by the game. We thought that it butchered Phoenix's image. As you can see in my Apollo Justice review, I have Phoenix going like this in the cover of it because it was such a disgrace. But before Dual Destinies came out, I legitimately wondered to myself if that ending of Justice for All actually did create an Ace Attorney multiverse. Now, as ridiculous as some of their stories are, I had to admit that this was so cool. But they represented it in game boxes. So basically my theory was that Trials and Tribulations was the game that took place in the universe where Phoenix won the trial. And so therefore, he continued with all the lovable characters, and he retained the Phoenix-ness that we loved about him from his previous two games. But on the other hand, take Apollo Justice. In the theory back then, I theorized that perhaps the reason why Phoenix went all weird on us is because that was the universe in which he lost. Because as you well know, Phoenix lost his attorney's badge shortly before the events of Apollo Justice. And even though it is explained within that game exactly what caused him to lose his attorney's badge, at the time I remember thinking, well, maybe Phoenix was in such a bad position that he basically wanted to forget that the events of Justice for All and the first Ace Attorney never happened. And interestingly enough, there is a lot of evidence within the game to prove that. Whether this was intentional or not, I don't know. Consider when Phoenix first shows off the Magatama in Apollo Justice. Now, everyone who's played Ace Attorney knows that Phoenix got the Magatama from Maya in Justice for All in the second case. And the Magatama allows Phoenix to be able to see when someone's hiding something from him. But in Apollo Justice, he doesn't even mention Maya. He doesn't even hint at her. He just says, "You're probably wondering what this is, aren't you?" "Well, I got it from a certain case I worked on." And that's all he says. He makes no reference to the incredible relationship he and Maya have, which I actually plan on tackling in the next video, because it's something I've given a lot of thought to, and I want to expand on it. And not only that, but Phoenix is like a completely different person in Apollo Justice. And it got me thinking maybe Phoenix took his loss in that universe so hard that he became this weirdo version of himself in the Apollo Justice universe. And this was also before Professor Layton vs. Phoenix Wright came out. And when I saw that game with Maya back by Phoenix's side, with Phoenix's spiky hair returned, I thought to myself, this is probably the universe where Phoenix won. So this is the universe where Trials and Tribulations actually happened, where Phoenix didn't fall from grace. Alas, Dual Destinies came out, and Phoenix does indeed get a letter from Maya in that game, scratching out my whole theory completely. So as disappointed as I was that my theory was wrong, that's not to say that Ace Attorney is a stranger to stuff like alternate universes and whatnot, because we've got Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright, where fans have speculated that it probably came between the first two Ace Attorneys, but other fans say that it came like shortly after or before the final case of Trials and Tribulations, because Maya makes references to Luke Atme, and there's also a time when Phoenix is afraid of heights when he's crossing a bridge. We all know what happens in Trials and Tribulations when Phoenix tries to cross a bridge. So, trying to place that game in a timeline when theoretically it shouldn't even exist is also something that we should be used to as crossover fans. We've seen Phoenix appear in Project X Zone 2, which would support the Justice for All timeline as well, because Phoenix is with Maya. Also, Phoenix was a playable fighter in the game, I forget exactly what it was called because it wasn't on a Nintendo system, but it was like Marvel vs. Capcom Ultimate All-Stars or something like that. And Phoenix had Maya as a partner. What am I getting at, you might ask? Because I'm talking about a theory that's already been disproven, unlike most YouTubers. The thing I'm getting at is that Capcom must have really regretted some of their decisions in Apollo Justice. Because if you play Dual Destinies, right from the start, you can tell that Phoenix is back to his old self, almost as if his Professor Layton-esque mood never happened. Also consider that in Apollo Justice, Maya actually makes a reference to Phoenix losing his attorney's badge. Like, it's escaping me what the exact quote is at the moment, but Phoenix and Maya are investigating a crime scene, and Maya says, "I'd swear Nick's attorney's badge on this!" Almost as if, like I said, they didn't want Apollo Justice to happen. And there's also evidence to support that the Layton series didn't want to admit that the prequel trilogy ever existed, but this video is not here to talk about Layton. But suffice to say that it's very, very possible that Apollo Justice might have either been a bad dream or part of a program. Because consider that the final case of Apollo Justice takes place within what Phoenix calls the Matrix system. Now, because there's a lot of conundrums presented within the Matrix system, such as a time travel paradox where Phoenix is able to grab something from the future and use it to affect something in the past, it's not something that the Ace Attorney series is generally known for. Time travel paradoxes just aren't our thing. So it's extremely possible that maybe not just that particular case was in the Matrix system, but Phoenix himself actually created the entire game. And the reason why he's such a know-it-all isn't because he had this radical transformation, but the fact that Apollo Justice is, in itself, a game. And that, technically speaking, Trials and Tribulations and Dual Destinies came right after each other, and Phoenix was just decided to be an expert with a computer, I suppose. Now, fans could argue that Phoenix does have a bit of trouble with computers in the early games, and one could also argue, well, if Phoenix can't even drive, then how can he operate a computer? Well, anyway, I guess this is why the theorists do the videos, and I typically just say yeah or nay. So, anyway, hope you'll give me a comment and tell me what you think if you're an Ace Attorney fan, and stay tuned for my explaining Phoenix's bizarre relationship video. And until my next video, keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless.